Welcome to My Money, Your Money, a weekly talk show on generational wealth, wealth management, and personal finance. Now introducing our host, Bridget Lumpkins.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to My Money, Your Money, where we talk about all things money with the goal of closing the racial wealth gap. I'm your host, Bridget Lumpkins. I earned an MBA from Wharton and have worked at such firms as Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers, covering both private and institutional clients, as well as raising capital for investment funds. We are joined here today by our guest, Andy Sukhu, to talk about credit. Andy is an energetic and prolific entrepreneur with expertise on several topics, but today we're going to focus on his knowledge about credit and his company, Y2K Credit Solutions, through which he helps people repair their credit. Hailing from Guyana and holding 2 degrees, he started as an IT professional, but through his personal experience, was inspired to found Y2K to help other people along their credit improvement journeys and to unlock financial opportunities such as home ownership by doing so. Andy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited about it. We have a lot of topics to talk about. So,
That's right. Well, we're going to get after it. But first, I want to start with what I intentionally left out of your bio because I think you were the best person to tell your story. So, what did I leave out that you want our viewers to know? And tell us, why are you so passionate about helping people to fix their credit?
Perfect. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll get right into it. So, by trade, like you said, I have 2 college degrees: psychology of project management, and a PM certificate. Right. So, how I got into finance is just it was random. It wasn't where my direction was. I had an IT degree. I was working in IT, developing systems. That industry didn't work out too well for me. I went to University of Miami. Then I went back to work, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Back then, in early 2000s, the medical field was where you want to be at. So fast forward, I went to nursing school, pharmacy school, speech pathology, and it wasn't my thing. I didn't have patience for it. I had patients for making drugs. I couldn't stand blood. So I did educational psychology.
Never mind.
I think I did an IO, industrial organizational psychology, and that tailors around why a company functions the way they do, why the employees function the way they do, and why the company and the employee don't work together. That's what I did. However, with IT background, I landed a job at TransUnion, and I was working there. And credit is back then when at my age, 20, 23, 24, you don't care about credit. You're not worried about that, right?
Right.
And job and actually getting to understand how credit works opened my eyes to know the doors that credit opens up. And I had stains on my credit, and working at the credit bureaus and working on certain softwares for collection agencies is how I got into the industry. Why am I passionate about it now so much, and why I teach people how to do things the right way and how to become financial free and on their journey is because we all have this dream life that we want to come from the Caribbean background. Our parents taught us to go to school, get a regular job, become a doctor, lawyer, whatever the case may be. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, so it didn't work out too good for me. But I always wanted to live that dream life, like have the cars, have the house, the traveling, have the good credit card. I always have friends around me that was older, wiser, and had more things than me. So I'm like, how am I going to do that? Because it's not going to happen with 9 to 5. Then I realized a 9 to 5 is not how you get rich in this country. We were taught that because of school. It's really understanding how to use the bank's money and having good credit. Once I figured that out and I started utilizing it on myself, everything I teach my clients and everything I've built in my company has been hand tested by me. Nothing is just off the shelf.
Right.
Right, left, center, all around. Before I actually talk about it, put it online and teach my clients how to do it. It's nothing off the shelf, and it's not someone else's data I'm regurgitating. Everything I with my own 2 hands. And now, fast forward, I created this company, and it's bigger than what I expected it to be. I want to teach everyone how to become financially free and understand the psychology of money, how to use money to make money. Money is not, for us to use it, get it and use it. It's to reinvest it to make more money. Then we can live the lifestyle. And the thing is, the second thing I want to say about this is that our Caribbean, we have it backwards. Our Caribbean mentality backwards. We work, put our money in the shoebox, buy one house, and we talk about generational wealth. No, that's not how generational wealth is built. So I wanted to break that curse in the Caribbean culture as well.
Well, you said a lot there, right? And I really appreciate your approach around the psychology of money. My original career was psychology. I was chief psychology master's in psychology too. And so I think that people underestimate, the psychology of how these things work. And I think it does play into how people get in trouble with their credit. But you said you want to teach people how to be financially free. And, according to the New York Federal Reserve Bank, consumer debt was $1.129 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2023. That is up year over year, 1.079 trillion, which was itself a record. So we set a new record in the fourth quarter of last year on consumer credit card debt. It's actually only fallen twice since the New York Fed started tracking in 1999, both in 2009 and 2010 when we were in the midst of the global financial crisis. And so I also run up my credit card during the holidays, like a lot of people, and I blow away the average. We don't even want to talk about that. But from your and the average is just under $7,000, across, in aggregate. But from your perspective, is this a big deal? And I think we have an image to sort of give some perspective as to how consumer credit card debt has grown over the last 25 years since the New York Fed started tracking it. So on the left-hand side, you see dollars and trillions, and we're well over $1 trillion. And you can see it's practically a straight line up. So tell me, is this a big deal? And is the growth of demand for your service tracking with the growth of debt?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought this up. This is actually a great graph, and I hope people can actually see it and understand what's going on here. And if they look at the loops, we were doing good in what year was that? It's so small I can't see, but where that drop was, that was we were doing good then. But I mean, listen, it's very important, and I'm glad that you brought that up because we need to keep mindful of that. But it's not uncommonly that credit card debts over the holidays and people getting into debt, it's not uncommon now. Like I think that number is actually higher than what you're that's showing right there.
Uh-huh.
But the Federal Reserve is more concerned about people's habit paying back these debts. And a lot of people can't pay these debts back that they're racking up their credit cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the main go ahead back.
Yeah, no, please continue.
No, one of the main reason was because after COVID, people, first of all, financial literacy is a big thing. And let me take a step back.
Right.
Financial literacy and how credit works and how credit card works, that's an issue by itself.
Yeah.
People need to understand first. We need to teach them that how financial literacy works, or teach them proper financial literacy. But over the holidays, people rack up their debts. Yes, they spend more than their income is because they don't have budgets, they don't have plans. They just swipe. And they gotta get caught up with these deals, 50% off. Nothing is 50% off in no store.
I mean, at all. It's such trickery, right?
Yeah, it's marketing. And that's the issue we have right now because the margin with the growth is going to pose significant challenges in the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So here's a $1 trillion question, right?
I said one thing. I did want to say one.
Yeah.
Yes, that we are tracking that because
Uh-huh.
are losing their jobs and they can't keep up with their payments.
Right.
So with the charge of collections,
Right.
going to be sued for it. So as that goes, the client's responsibility to pay it off is going up too.
Yep.
Right? People are not making the same kind of money they were making a couple of years ago. They don't have a job, or they're not able to find work. So yes, we are tracking it, and we do have a lot more clients now coming in because as taxes are going into tax season, credit cards are suing people, freezing bank accounts, putting liens against their home to collect their money. So
Wow.
that's what we're going to with this.
That's not a fun outcome. So, here's a $1 trillion question, because I think a lot of people don't actually understand this. So I'm really hoping you can illuminate this question for us, which is, what is a FICO score and what is a credit bureau? And why do we have more than one FICO score? Can you explain that a little bit?
That's great. So FICO is a Fair Isaac credit company. They're the one that created the FICO score, right?
Okay.
Now, people need to understand there's two scoring models. There's Vantage and there's FICO now. Now we're moving into Vantage. At the end of the year, most banks are going to start using Vantage because Vantage holds more of your negative data. So FICO 8, 9 is for consumers, right? So if you have a collection on your credit report, the FICO score would not hold so much weight. So for example, if you had that collection, your score was a 650, your score may go to like a 610. It wouldn't go below that. FICO was designed to keep you at a certain level, which is
You on a certain band, right? So it's not supposed to be super volatile. Okay, got it. Or super punitive.
correct. So now they came out with FICO 10 and FICO 10T, which we started using now. Not a lot of people are using it because it's kind of a double-edged sword. FICO 10 and FICO 10T was created to help the banks, not the consumers. Help the bank forecast if this customer is going to be a delinquent client before they extend the money.
Okay.
So the FICO was created, the score is created by FICO. Why we have so many score models? Because every year they change it. We're on FICO 10 now, FICO 8, 9. As new rules come out for credit cards and credit bureaus and how things are reported, the score model changes.
Like your iPhone, like software.
Yes, exactly.
Right. It's updated. It's updated. With the predictive value of AI, I can imagine that there would be a lot more intelligent models to predict repayment risk,
Right.
now and maybe obsolesce older versions of the FICO models.
Well, that's what FICO 10T is about. That's what it came out.
Right. It's about being more advanced. So how does a FICO score affect your life? Right.
So
What can a high score do for you and what does a low score keep you from?
that's the $1 million question right there. All right. So listen, the higher your score is, it makes the bank see you as a reputable client to lend money to. The higher the score is. The lower the score is, it makes your high risk. Banks don't want to lend you. And that ties into something else we're going to talk about later on, somewhere down the line, about subprime and prime banks. The higher the score is, you get prime credit card, you get low interest rates, you get high credit limits, you get perks, you get travel points, you get like Sapphire card, American Express Platinum.
Right.
Those are the things you get with the higher credit score. With the lower credit scores, you get the Capital One, the Credit One, First Premier, the 29% interest rate. The credit limit is $500.
Right.
And in a home perspective, when you're purchasing a home and you need a mortgage, the higher the score is, the lower the interest rate is. The lower the score is, the higher the interest rate is. So score plays a big role in the whole credit space. I should say that. Now, if you keep that score too low, you do become higher risk to the banks, and the banks can't close your credit cards off or cut your limits because you're higher risk, and they're thinking that you're not going to be able to pay it back. Your score keeps dropping.
Right. Okay, I want to explore this more, but we need to pay the bill. Speaking of bill paying, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Gotcha.
I grew up down here in South Florida, so for me, it's a little bit more personal.
For the Mesman & Dover Law Firm, it's about community.
For us, South Florida's our home. You all are our people.
Our family. Our future.
The difference we'll make for you, your loved ones, your kids, matters. Because to us, it's personal.
If you need us, call us 24/7 at 866-954-MORE.
That's 866-954-6673. Demesman & Dover Law Firm, youraccidentattorneys.com.
Thank you for staying with us. And I do want to mention the graph we saw earlier was courtesy of the New York Federal Reserve Bank and Equifax. So getting back into it, what are the most common drivers of low credit scores among your clients? Are people using credit to supplement insufficient income? Are they ignoring certain classes of debt, like just not paying their student loans, paying everything else? Are they uneducated regarding the process of how debtors, their debtors report? For example, I know a person, this was a long time ago, who thought their debt obligation was forgiven because they stopped hearing from the company, the credit card they owed the money to. And of course, it ended up showing us as charge off and like decimated their FICO score. So what are the patterns that you see that are most common when people come to you for help?
One, man, that question has so many answers to it, but I'll try to get you the top three. One, people don't check their credit report. Things are reporting on credit report, right, left, and center all day. People don't get in the report for a viable source. They go into like Credit Karma. Credit Karma is not real. It's from Intuit, QuickBooks. That's one. Two,
right.
A lot of people, because they lost their job, what you said was correct, that they think that the debt disappeared because no one is calling them no more. No one is calling you no more because every bank and every collection agency do something called skip tracing. So if you're not paying all your other debts, they're not going to keep calling you every day. But when you apply for a mortgage or you apply for a new credit card,
Right.
when it comes back up, now you start getting calls from them. All right. 3, credit utilization. And that ties into a lot of people that have these subprime credit cards. When your credit card limit is $500, and everyone thinks that's the best credit card, or because I have a credit card from Capital One. Yes, you don't want those credit cards, but you make one transaction, and let's say the limit is 500, you use 450. Now you're over the utilization. 1, 2, people in the habit of paying minimum payments, not realizing on subprime credit cards, the minimum payment is 90% of it is going to interest. So the balance is not going down. You're getting frustrated, and it keeps utilization high. You're past that 30% threshold. That's one of the main reasons. 2, when people exit out of like an estate or an apartment, they're not cutting off. They're not exiting properly. There's a way to exit a state or an apartment. When I mean a state, like move from New York to Florida, or you move out from one. And bills are like cable bills, things like that, or miscellaneous things that showing up on the credit because they didn't properly. And those are the minor things. But the main thing is credit utilization. People need to stay under that 30% and watch their credit and know where they're spending it. If they don't have the money, don't spend, because that's going to drop your score.
So I want to double click on that because I think a lot of people don't understand. I understand what you're saying, but I want you to explain it to our audience. Like if you have 5 credit cards with a total limit of 2,000, then you don't spend more than 30% of that 2,000 on those credit cards.
That is correct. So in the credit space, everyone is given 100% credit, right?
Mhm.
The goal is to use 30% of it, keep 70% available. If you go over that 30% utilization, your score is going to drop. Now, if you pay off next month, you have to wait until the next statement date, your score is going to go back up, right? That's how that utilization works, 30-70 rule. That's 30-70 rule. So everyone needs to be mindful of how it's spending. And there was a second part to the question that you asked.
Well, the second part is, um, what are the patterns that you're seeing? Like, what is the most common driver of people's credit being not in good shape, like having a low score?
Honestly, just people not being responsible and paying the bills on time, late payments. For example,
Okay.
people have 30-day lates on their credit report, don't realize you lose 120 points for that. But
Yeah.
if you can't afford to make a double payment, like let's say the payment is $30 and pay 60, just make the minimum. If you can afford McDonald's, you can afford to make the minimum payment just to avoid that late payment.
Yeah. Because that late payment costs a lot more than not yet later.
It's hard. Let me touch on that. It's very hard to remove a late payment from a credit report because you have to prove to the creditors and the credit bureaus that it is not a consumer error, it's a bank error.
Okay.
Don't realize that when you make a payment to your audience, when you make a payment from your bank account, it's timestamped when it leaves your bank account and when it's received by the receiving bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Receive outside of your 30 days, you are late. That's your fault. It's very hard to get that staying off. And that staying could cost you 120 points.
That's
an actual number. That's a real common number.
That's a harsh number. That's a big number. That's a big number. Okay, so what other patterns have you noticed in your business? For example, I saw some stats today that said Florida is one of the most indebted states. We also have a high cost of living, especially in South Florida, compared to, say, Mississippi. So I think there's some cost adjustments we need to make. So, and also just notice that we're just talking right now about versus that like mortgage, student loan, all that kind of stuff. But do you see demographic or geographical differences in your client base around, the patterns that you're seeing with them?
That's a very good question. Yes, I do see a pattern geographically with our clients. So, first off, people like our minorities, like us, we weren't taught how to use credit. Our weren't taught how to use. They don't understand the fundamentals of credit, and because without that education, we do a lot of idiotic things, and we think we know it all. You know what I'm saying? And we think what we're doing is the right thing. I do see a lot of other genre of people, especially in a later age group, are getting divorced now, and they have judgments against them. So,
Okay.
I know that something you guys want to talk about to close the racial gap. To be honest with you, I feel like that gap is getting more normal now with every genre.
Okay.
I have clients from all different races coming over now. They have judgment. They're trying to buy a house. Their bank account is frozen. Their payroll is being frozen. So it's that gap is actually getting wider. It's becoming more common now to be in debt.
Right. Well, I mean, as we saw with the gap, with the graph earlier, right? So we need to take one more quick break to pay the bills. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I grew up down here in South Florida, so for me, it's a little bit more personal.
For the Mesman and Dover Law Firm, it's about community.
For us, South Florida's our home. You all are our people.
Our family, our future.
The difference we'll make for you, your loved ones, your kids, matters, because to us, it's personal.
If you need us, call us 24/7 at 866-954-MORE.
That's 866-954-6673. Demesman and Dover Law Firm, your accident.
Yes, we are talking to Andy Sukhu about credit repair. And I wanted to say, because we were talking before the break about patterns that you have observed, and the average FICO score across all Americans is 703. Asians have an average of 745, with white Americans at 734, Hispanics at 701, and Black Americans at 677. So another statistic that I think is relevant here to the patterns we were talking about is Black college grads tend to graduate with $25,000 more debt than the average white American college graduate, which really relates to the racial wealth gap that we're talking about, trying to eradicate. Home ownership is allegedly also rewarded in FICO scores, which disadvantages renters and people who can't save a down payment to get into a home. So you can see how these cyclical forces work to support lower credit scores for Black folks in the US versus like our counterparts, our similarly situated counterparts. And so, there's a new trend towards reporting rent payments to support your credit history. Have you seen that be helpful? What do you think about that? Should people opt for that if they have the option with their landlord?
I am glad you brought that up. First off, stay away from self-rent. Stay away, whether it be your phone bill, your electric bill, your gas bill, your rent. Stay away from it. Let me tell you what. One, there's 3 credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You always want all 3 credit bureaus to have the same data across the board. Now, the score will differ 5 to 10 points based off of the credit cards and the credit card utilization. Not all creditors report to all 3 bureaus. And because creditors do pay to report to the credit bureaus, the service is not free. Now, when you do rent to own stuff, it only reports to one bureau, Experian. So now you have this account that's inflating your score 20 points, but your other 2, Equifax and TransUnion, are below because that data does not report to all 3 bureaus. Second thing is, this is a question I think you were going to ask me, and I'll answer it now. Credit is built on revolving and installment. That's the only 2 things credit is built on. Everything else you don't want on your credit report.
Can you explain the difference between that? So revolving is credit cards and installment is like a mortgage.
Absolutely. So it's a 60-40 rule, right? Let me tell you why. Mortgages, auto loan, student loan doesn't hold that much weight in the overall number factor, but it does hold some weight. But it's credit cards, mortgages, auto loan, personal loan. Now, credit cards is unsecured. So you swipe, you paid, you have the card for 6 months, you pay it on time, the banks give you credit line increases, they hope that you swipe and pay it back on our system. Or loans, like mortgages, once you pay it off, that's paid off and closed. There's nothing to report anymore. Now, even though the data it's dead on your credit report and it's not calculating your scores continue to build based off of your credit card utilization, your credit card history, your credit cards relationship. That's the difference, what I'm talking about. Now, you should not have only self-accounts reporting on your credit report. Every time we see a client that have it, we take it off. Because
Tell me more about that. Like, why wouldn't it be better to have more positive data, even if it's just on the Experian credit report?
There's another thing now. If you're late, if you made your rent late, now I got reported that you were late on your rent.
Okay. So you have to be fairly confident you're going to pay your rent on time.
Your phone bill, the people who their cell phone, the cable bill, the utility bill. And for a lot of our minorities that are renting, we're renting for a reason because income is not as high to buy a home. We don't have the savings yet.
Right.
Some of us are taking from Peter to pay Paul, right? At checks and balances. You don't want things like that if you know you're not able to make consistent monthly payments on time.
Okay.
To lose 60 to 80 points for utility bill, that's not even a requirement on the credit report.
Yeah, that's silly.
It don't do it. A lot of people talk about it because let me add one more last thing. A lot of people do that because they have negative items on their credit report and they're thinking that's going to fix the problem or get the score up. Be very clear with you guys. You cannot add positive on top of negative. Does not work.
So you can only remove the negative.
Negatives have to be removed and dissolved, then add positive. Because what happened now, you added positive account to a negative report. Yes, for 30 days it'll go up, but then the next 30 days it come back down because the collections are still reported every month as unpaid.
So I wish we had more time today to talk, but we don't. But we'll bring you back so that we can talk more about debt consolidation and debt settlement so that we can distinguish between the two and you can talk about what you do.
This is how we're gonna close our racial gap.
Yeah,
Get everyone out of debt first,
right.
on a good financial path to get prime credit cards, teach them how to get their home, purchase their first home, leverage that home to buy another home. And now we're talking about generational wealth.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's why you're here. And we thank you so much, Andy, for joining us. Audience, thank you for being with us today. We hope you'll tune in to part 2 with Andy Sukhu. And let's work together to